Hello and welcome to Curated Classics, the channel that shares the most famous and popular stories from books, films and history in quick summaries so that you can learn the classics quickly without hours of reading or years of expensive courses. Today you are listening to Great Expectations, a classic coming-of-age novel by Charles Dickens, first published in 1861. The story revolves around the life of an orphan named Pip, who aspires to become a gentleman in order to win the love of the beautiful but cold-hearted Estella. The novel explores themes of social class, ambition, and personal growth. For a more in-depth understanding of the book, we will now provide a chapter-by-chapter breakdown. Chapter 1. The story begins with the protagonist, Pip, visiting the graves of his parents and siblings in a Mike churchyard. He encounters an escaped convict named Magwitch, who threatens him and demands food and a file to remove his leg irons. Chapter 2. Pip lives with his abusive older sister, Mrs. Joe, and her kind husband, Joe Gary, a blacksmith. Feeling guilty, he steals food from the pantry and a file from Joe's workshop to give to Magwitch. Chapter 3. Pip meets Magwitch in the marshes and provides him with the food and the file. Magwitch is grateful, and they part ways. Later, Pip hears the sounds of pursuit and gunshots in the distance, indicating that Magwitch has been caught. Chapter 4. The Gargery household celebrates Christmas with guests including the pompous Uncle Pumblechook and the church clerk, Mr. Wopsle. During the feast, soldiers arrive in search of a blacksmith to fix their handcuffs. Joe accompanies them, and Pip fears his theft will be discovered. Chapter 5. Joe, Mr. Wopsle and the soldiers find Magwitch and another escaped convict, Compeyson, fighting each other in the marshes. The Magwitch is recaptured and taken back to the prison ship. Before leaving, he takes responsibility for the stolen food and file, sparing Pip from punishment. Chapter 6. Life returns to normal for Pip, who continues to help Joe at the forge. He feels guilt over his encounter with Magwitch and his secret theft, but remains silent about the incident. Joe and Pip share a strong bond, and Pip appreciates Joe's kindness and patience. Chapter 7. Pip attends a small village school run by Mr. Wopsle's great-aunt. He struggles to learn and is often frustrated, but Biddy, the great-aunt's granddaughter, assists him. Uncle Pumblechook arranges for Pip to visit Miss Havisham's house, Sassie's house, and play with her adopted daughter, Estella. Chapter 8. Pip meets the eccentric and wealthy Miss Havisham, who wears a decaying wedding dress and lives in a dilapidated mansion. He is introduced to the beautiful but cold-hearted Estella, who mocks Pip's coarseness and social class. Miss Havisham encourages Estella to break Pip's heart. Pip plays cards with Estella and becomes infatuated with her, sparking his desire to become a gentleman. Chapter 9. Pip returns home and tells Mrs. Joe and Uncle Pumblechook about his visit to Sassie's house. He omits details about Miss Havisham's peculiarities and Estella's cruelty, instead inventing a more palatable story. His sister and uncle are pleased, hoping that Miss Havisham may eventually become Pip's benefactor. Chapter 10. Pip continues to visit Sassie's house, where he encounters a pale young gentleman, later revealed as Herbert Pocket. Pip and Herbert engage in a fistfight, with Pip emerging as the victor. Despite their initial scuffle, the two boys part amicably. Chapter 11. During one of his visits to Sassie's house, Pip is asked to bring Joe along. So when they arrive, Miss Havisham insists on speaking with Joe alone. Joe feels awkward and out of place in the mansion, and Pip realizes the stark difference between their social status. So Miss Havisham decides to pay for Pip's apprenticeship as a blacksmith under Joe. Chapter 12. Pip begins his apprenticeship with Joe at the forge. Despite his love for Joe, Pip is disappointed, as he secretly wishes to become a gentleman and win Estella's affection. Pip is consoled by Biddy, who teaches him to read and write in the evenings. Chapter 13. On Pip's birthday, he receives a gift from Miss Havisham, consisting of a sum of money for his apprenticeship. Joe and Pip visit her to express their gratitude. During their visit, Pip sees Estella, who has become even more beautiful, increasing his infatuation with her. Chapter 14. Pip becomes more self-conscious about his social standing and is frustrated by his position as a blacksmith's apprentice. He secretly hopes that Miss Havisham has greater plans for him and that she will make him into a gentleman. Chapter 15. Pip becomes more aware of the limitations of his education and seeks Biddy's help to improve his knowledge. Pip confides in Biddy about his love for Estella and his aspirations to become a gentleman. Miss Joe is severely injured during a mysterious attack, and Biddy moves in with the Gargerys to care for her. Chapter 16. Pip and Joe discuss the mysterious attack on Miss Joe, suspecting that the culprit is Orlick, a disagreeable journeyman working for Joe. Pip feels guilt for his secret desire to leave the forge and become a gentleman, as it distances him from Joe and Biddy. Chapter 17. Pip continues to visit Miss Havisham, who encourages him to pursue Estella, knowing that Estella will cause him pain. But Estella leaves Satis house to be educated abroad, and Pip is disheartened by her departure. Chapter 18. Mr. Jaggers, a lawyer, arrives at the Gargery household with news that Pip has inherited a large fortune from an anonymous benefactor. Pip is to move to London and be educated as a gentleman. Pip assumes that Miss Havisham is his secret benefactor and that she intends for him to marry Estella. Chapter 19. Pip prepares to leave for London, saying emotional goodbyes to Joe, Biddy, and the village. He feels a mixture of excitement and guilt as he is leaving behind the life he has known and the people who care for him. Chapter 20. Pip arrives in London and meets Mr. Jaggers at his office. He is introduced to Mr. Jaggers' peculiar clerk, Mr. Wemmick, who takes Pip to Barnard's Inn, where he will reside temporarily. Pip is struck by the grimy and chaotic nature of the city, but remains hopeful for his future. Chapter 21. Pip meets his tutor, Matthew Pocket, and his son Herbert at the Pocket residence. Herbert is revealed to be the same pale young gentleman Pip encountered at Satis house. The two become fast friends, and Herbert shares his dreams of entering the shipping business. Chapter 22. Pip and Herbert enjoy each other's company and bond over their shared experiences with Miss Havisham. Herbert tells Pip the story of Miss Havisham's past, including how she was left at the altar by Compeyson, a swindler, leading her to become a recluse. Chapter 23. Pip begins his education under Matthew Pocket, along with several other students. He finds Mr. Pocket to be a kind and competent teacher, although somewhat absent-minded. Pip's relationship with Herbert continues to grow, and they share their aspirations and dreams. Chapter 24. Pip visits Mr. Jaggers' office and encounters the lawyer's other clients, who have been accused of various crimes. Pip is disturbed by Mr. Jaggers' ruthless demeanor and his ability to manipulate the truth. He is further unsettled when Mr. Jaggers invites him to dinner, where he meets the lawyer's housekeeper, Molly, who has a mysterious and haunting past. Chapter 25. Pip, Herbert, and the other students attend Mr. Jaggers' house. They discuss their benefactors and speculate about their futures. The dinner is uncomfortable, as the students are uneasy around Mr. Jaggers and his unsettling domestic life. Chapter 26. Pip and Herbert move into their own residence and live extravagantly, accumulating debt in the process. Despite their financial irresponsibility, their friendship remains strong and they support each other in their pursuits. Chapter 27. Joe visits Pip in London to deliver a message from Miss Havisham. Pip is embarrassed by Joe's rustic manners and is anxious about how his new, sophisticated friends will perceive him. Joe senses Pip's unease and cuts his visit short, leaving Pip feeling guilty for his behavior. Chapter 28. Pip journeys back to his hometown to visit Miss Havisham and Estella. On the way, he encounters a pair of convicts who recognize him from his childhood encounter with Magwitch. Pip learns that one of the convicts gave Magwitch the blob had provided years ago. Chapter 29. Pip visits Satis house and finds Estella, who has become even more beautiful and captivating. So Miss Havisham encourages Pip to court Estella, further fueling his love for her. Estella warns Pip that she is incapable of loving him, but he remains hopeful. Chapter 30. Pip returns to London, feeling conflicted about Estella, his newfound wealth, and the expectations placed upon him. He tries to reconcile his past with his current life as a gentleman, while his feelings for Estella continue to torment him. Chapter 31. Pip and Herbert attend the theatre to watch a play in which Mr. Wopsle, who has become an actor, performs. The play is poorly executed, but Pip and Herbert find humor in the situation, strengthening their friendship. Chapter 32. Estella sends a letter to Pip, informing him that she will be visiting London. Pip is excited and nervous about a revolt, consumed by his love for her. Chapter 33. Pip meets Estella in London, and she treats him with her usual coldness. Despite her indifference, Pip remains infatuated with her. He accompanies her to a dinner at the home of her London guardian, where he discovers that Mr. Jaggers is also her guardian. Chapter 34. Pip reflects on his moral decline and the way his fortune has negatively affected his character. He feels guilty for his mistreatment of Joe and Biddy and regrets the debt he and Herbert have accumulated. Chapter 35. Pip receives a letter from Biddy, informing him that Joe and Miss Joe's lives have improved, but also that Orlick is now working for Miss Havisham. Concerned, Pip visits Miss Havisham and requests that she dismiss Orlick. She agrees, and Pip wonders if he should confess his love for Estella. Chapter 36. On his 21st birthday, Pip receives a visit from Mr. Jaggers, who gives him control of his annual income. Pip decides to use part of his money to secretly help Herbert establish himself in the shipping business revealing his generosity despite his moral shortcomings. Chapter 37. Pip and Wemmick devise a plan to help Herbert enter the shipping business without revealing Pip as the benefactor. They establish a fictional character, Mr. Clariker, as the financier of Herbert's venture, which eventually becomes successful. Chapter 38. Pip is invited to a dinner at Satis house, where he learns that Estella is engaged to the wealthy but arrogant Bentley Drummle. Miss Havisham appears to take pleasure in Pip's heartbreak, as she had intended for Estella to break his heart all along. Chapter 39. During a stormy night, Pip receives an unexpected visitor at his London residence, the convict Magwitch. Magwitch reveals that he is Pip's mysterious benefactor, having amassed a fortune in Australia. Pip is shocked and horrified, as he had believed Miss Havisham to be his benefactor and had hoped to marry Estella. Chapter 40. Pip shares the truth about his benefactor with Herbert, and they decide to find a way to return the money and help Magwitch leave England, as he is in danger of being captured and executed. Pip struggles to reconcile his feelings about Magwitch, who has shown him great kindness, with his disappointment over the source of his wealth. Chapter 41. Pip and Herbert devise a plan to help Magwitch escape by boat. In the meantime, they hide him in a lodging house to keep him safe from the authorities. Pip is conflicted about his feelings toward Magwitch, as he is grateful for the convict's generosity, but repulsed by the criminal aspects of his life. Chapter 42. Magwitch shares his life story with Pip, revealing his involvement in various crimes alongside another convict named Compeyson. Magwitch also discloses that Compeyson was the man who jilted Miss Havisham at the altar, connecting the two major storylines. Chapter 43. Pip visits Satis house to confront Miss Havisham and tell her that he cannot accept any more of her money now that he knows the truth about his benefactor. He also informs her about Estella's engagement to Bentley Drummle, and Miss Havisham is distraught, realizing the consequences of her actions. Chapter 44. Pip confesses his love for Estella, who admits that she has been manipulating him under Miss Havisham's guidance. Despite her coldness and the hopelessness of their situation, Pip continues to love Estella. Chapter 45. Pip and Herbert make arrangements for Magwitch's escape, keeping him hidden from the authorities. Pip receives a letter from Wemmick warning him that they are being watched and must hasten their plans. Chapter 46. Pip and Herbert decide to move Magwitch to a safe house near the river, where they can more easily execute their plan to help him flee England. They are cautious, knowing that they are being pursued, and they take measures to keep their actions secret. Chapter 47. Pip, Herbert, and Magwitch reach the safe house, where they wait for the right time to enact their plan. Pip feels increasingly anxious about the situation, as they must be careful to avoid capture. Chapter 48. Pip visits Miss Havisham for the last time, seeking financial assistance for Herbert. During the meeting, Miss Havisham expresses remorse for her past actions and the pain she has caused. As Pip leaves, Miss Havisham's dress catches fire, and Pip heroically tries to save her. So Miss Havisham is severely burned, and Pip's hands are injured in a rescue attempt. Chapter 49. Pip learns that Miss Havisham has died from her injuries. He also receives a letter from Mr. Jaggers, confirming that Magwitch is Estella's father. Pip is shocked by this revelation but decides to keep the truth from Magwitch to protect him from further pain. Chapter 50. Pip, Herbert, and their friend Startop make final preparations for Magwitch's escape. They are aware that they are being pursued and must act cautiously to ensure their plan's success. Chapter 51. On the day of the escape attempt, Pip, Herbert, and Startop row Magwitch down the river to meet a ship that will take him out of England. As they approach the vessel, they are intercepted by another boat, which carries Compeyson and the authorities. Chapter 52. A violent struggle ensues, and Magwitch kills Compeyson before being apprehended. Magwitch is injured in the process, and Pip is devastated, realizing that their escape plan has failed, and that his own future is now uncertain. Chapter 53. Magwitch is sentenced to death, but his sentence is later reduced due to his poor health. Pip stays by Magwitch's side until he dies, expressing gratitude for the convict's love and support. Pip is arrested for his debts, but his friend Herbert saves him from prison, and they leave England together to start anew. Chapter 54. After several years abroad, Pip and Herbert become successful in the shipping business, and Pip repays all his debts. The two friends have matured and learned the value of hard work and responsibility. Herbert marries Clara, the woman he loves, and they invite Pip to live with them. Chapter 55. Pip receives news that Joe and Biddy have married and had a child together. He returns to England and visits the forge, where he reconciles with Joe and Biddy. Pip is overjoyed to see them living a happy life, and they welcome him warmly. Chapter 56. Many years later, Pip visits Sadie's house, which has been torn down and replaced with a housing development. He encounters Estella, who has been widowed after an unhappy marriage to Bentley Drummle. Estella has changed, becoming more humble and empathetic due to her hardships. Chapter 57. Pip and Estella walk together, reminiscing about their shared past and discussing their respective journeys. They part on good terms, with a mutual understanding and the possibility of a future friendship. Chapter 58. Pip falls ill due to the stress and emotional turmoil he has endured. Joe comes to London and takes care of him during his illness, nursing him back to health. Joe tells Pip about his marriage to Biddy and their baby, who they have named Pip in his honor. As Pip recovers, he feels immense gratitude for Joe's unwavering support and love. To one day, Pip wakes up to find that Joe has left, having paid off all of Pip's debts. Pip decides to return to his hometown, seek employment, and rebuild his relationship with Joe and Biddy. Chapter 59. After working for some years on Herbert St. Clair's ship, Pip returns to his village to visit Joe, Biddy, and their family. Upon arrival, he is delighted to see them living happily together, and he is warmly welcomed. Pip promises to visit more frequently and maintain a close relationship with them. Later, Pip visits the ruins of Satta's house, where he encounters Estella. She has also changed, having suffered in her marriage to the abusive Bentley Drummle, who has since died. As they walk through the old garden, Pip and Estella reconnect, and the novel ends on an ambiguous note, suggesting the possibility of a future relationship between them, but ultimately leaving their fate open to interpretation. Thank you for listening to Curated Classics. If you enjoyed this story and it provided valuable insights, we hope you will give this video a like by clicking the thumbs up, sharing it with other lifelong learners, and please check out more of the greatest stories throughout history on the Curated Classics channel. See you next time.